All right. So, okay.
All right, it looks like everyone is here. I'd like to welcome everyone to this grant panel. My name is Jana Goranson. On behalf of the Nebraska Arts Council, I'd like to welcome everyone to the panel meeting. We have met to review applications in the Arts Learning Project Grant category. Decisions made by this panel will determine the funding for all applications, and they will be reviewed by the Nebraska Arts Council at our next meeting, which will convene on December 10th of 2024. So to begin this process, I would like it if each panelist could introduce themselves to one another and to everyone listening in, and I'll call upon you one by one. So we will begin with Jody Cushions.
Hi, my name is Jody Cushions. I'm an arts learning coordinator at the Ohio Arts Council, and I'm really happy to be here today.
Thanks for joining us, Jody. Next, Casey Norman.
Good morning. My name is Casey Norman. I'm the Arts and Education Program Manager at the Alabama State Council on the Arts.
Welcome, Casey. Chris Sweat.
Hello, my name is Chris Sweat, and I'm Director of Arts Education at the Tennessee Arts Commission. Good to see everyone.
Thank you, Chris. And our last panelist, Cynthia Warner.
Good morning, Cynthia Warner here from the Kentucky Arts Council, and I too am glad to be here.
Well, we welcome all of you. Thank you for joining with us and doing this work. In addition to the panelists, Nebraska Arts Council staff members present today include Mike Markey, our Executive Director, Cindy Grady, our Deputy Director, Ann Alston, our Program Specialist, Jennifer Drybelbus, Grants Administrator, and she will manage the scoring for our online grant system, Joshua Brown, Program Coordinator, and he will be taking minutes, and Sam Hennig, our Communications Manager, will be on hand to assist with any tech issues if anything arises. So we will begin by Mike giving a few remarks if he would like to.
Thank you, Jana. You'd think I'd have been ready. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. And I want to thank you all for the work that you're doing. I enjoyed very much reading the applications that you've put together. A lot of exciting and important work that you're doing in arts education across the state. I want to take this opportunity to encourage you to, as you always do, let your elected officials know about the work that you're doing. Where appropriate, invite them to your events so that they know the important work that you're doing. And certainly afterwards, drop them a line. Thank them for their support of public art and the arts education throughout the state. That is certainly level at the state legislator level. We have a lot of new ones, and if you haven't met your new state legislator yet, this is a wonderful opportunity. But also the local officials, mayors, city councilmen, people like that, they become the state legislators of tomorrow. So all of your representatives are important to encourage them to learn more about arts education. And more than now more than ever, now more than ever, it's important for them to know about the work that you're doing. So I encourage you to do that. And along those lines, come February 19th, we'll be meeting in Lincoln, Nebraska for Arts Advocacy Day. And it's a wonderful opportunity for you to come and learn about the efforts to promote the arts and arts education across the state and meet other people that are doing so. There'll be more information about that, and I hope that you'll join us for that. Finally, you've got a wonderful panel of folks here today, and Ann Alston has put together a really stellar team from across the country. Know that you won't hear much from Ann today. She's always there for you before and after the project, the panel. But during the process today, she'll remain quiet and let the panel do its work. So, but do know she's there for you before and after whenever you need her. That's it, Jana. Thank you for your work today, and good luck. I'll be listening in and can't wait to hear what you all have to say.
Thank you very much, Mike. So I think we'll begin by Ann will be discussing, or do you need to say
Good morning, Helena.
Josh, you're not muted.
Sorry about that.
Sorry. So I'll provide a quick synopsis of the first grant. Is that what you were about to say, Jana? I'm
Oh,
sorry.
yeah, that's great. Are there, before we do that, are there any questions among the panelists? Are you ready to begin? Okay, and how this will work is Anne will provide a brief synopsis of each application, and then I will call upon the panelists one by one, and I will first call on the primary reviewer, and then the secondary reviewer, and then if any other additional reviewers have comments, we'd love to hear from you then. So we will now proceed with the first application, which is the Benson First Friday, the Creative Connections at Benson High School.
Okay, this project is part of a broader initiative aimed at bridging the gap between Benson High School students and the Benson Creative District by fostering collaborative art projects that enhance community engagement and cultural representation. And as a note, maybe it was evident in the application, but Benson is a neighborhood within the city of Omaha. Benson High School, it sits right in that neighborhood.
Thank you, Anne. We will begin with our primary reviewer, Casey Norman, for this application.
Okay. I really loved this idea. I thought it was really quite innovative and a really interesting way of kind of connecting students with their community, but also a unique way of doing it for a long-term time. As far as just it seems like it's the opportunity to go a little bit deeper into that investment for the students. Not only are they learning about members of their community through a creative experience, but also kind of building buy-in for those students to maybe to continue to invest long-term. So I thought that was really interesting. I also really like this idea of neighborhoods that are declaring themselves as creative districts. That is something that we have happening a little bit here in Alabama. And so I love that idea of a area saying, this is what we're going to be, and we're going to celebrate everything creative and everything artistic about it ourselves. So I thought, I think it's just a great idea. I also felt like they left room for sustainability. They're focusing kind of on a workshop and paneling, and then the output is going to be a literary magazine, but there's certainly room to expand into other disciplines and outputs. And I thought that was really a great way to kind of set it up. Let's see. I did think that everything was really well thought out. I thought it was really concise and clear. They spent a lot of time in the narratives and explaining, and I appreciated that. I would have liked to have known more about some measurable goals that they're planning, as well as specific standards that they plan on meeting. They wrote about what their intentions were as far as meeting those curriculum standards, but they didn't kind of directly connect those things. So I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of that. I also, as I mentioned, I thought they did a really great job of making it clear that they understand their community and their students, and how to meet the needs of their students, as well as the people working in those industries within their community. I think that this is a project that would benefit both sides. It's not just a benefit to the students. It seems like it's a great opportunity to also benefit the artists that are working within that community. So yeah, I thought this was a really strong application. I thought their budget seemed reasonable and feasible. I'm always a big fan of paying artists for their work, and so I was glad to see that. but that they also noted that some of the lunch and learn artists would be volunteering their time for this project.
Thank you, Casey, for that review. Chris, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, so I agree with Casey. I think one thing that struck me with this application is just the sort of variety of activities and the fact that there are several different entry points. One thing I would have liked a little more clarification on is exactly who the students are and like how it works within the school, as far as like at one point it mentions an art club, and then at another time it's the Arts and Design Academy. And so is it like an elective thing, or is it part of a class? And then it mentioned the business students as well. Are those from within this arts group or a different academy within the school? So just more clarification about that would have been helpful. I really appreciated the example of the literary magazine, and in particular, the introduction from the senator, which I thought showed community engagement and political engagement as well. Let's see. And then the other thing would just be, they mentioned sort of the goal of students ultimately realizing that these skills related to public arts can be immediately implemented. So just maybe I would have liked to see more relating to educational outcomes on some of the logistical components to public arts, such as, are students going to learn how to secure a permit and, ensure the work if applicable, or, some of those are priming the wall and picking out an appropriate space, all those things. But yes, otherwise, I agreed that this was a strong application. I enjoyed reading it.
Thank you, Chris. Jody or Cynthia, do you have anything further to add? Oh, okay. We will next have Anne highlight the next application, which is Bright Lights.
Actually, we should give everyone a chance to finalize
Thank
their
you,
scores
Anne.
and give you a thumbs up.
Thank you very much. I apologize for missing that step. So I would like if the panelists would look at their scores and if they need to adjust anything, and then just give me a thumbs up so I know when to proceed on. Okay, looks like we're ready. Now we will go on for Anne to give us a little information about Bright Lights.
Okay. Bright Lights is a summer camp program that encourages exploration, creativity, collaboration, communication, persistence, etc. for grades K through 8, based in Lincoln, Nebraska, and this will be their 38th summer of hands-on learning. And we'll leave it at that.
Thank you. So Jody, could we please hear from you first as our primary reviewer?
Yeah, so I mean, as Anne said, this 38 years of doing this, it sounded really notable. And so clearly this is a program that is well established in the community. And they have lots of different options for students and participants, I should say campers, as a summer camp program. And they've outlined that pretty well in their description and project goals. I saw a lot of really great key words I was picking up on, including the, building on STEAM learning, giving students an opportunity to have those experiences that they might not be able to have in the classroom during the school year, but expanding on arts integration and building curiosity and creativity and using hands-on learning and collaboration to promote critical thinking and creative work. I think the project overview outlined the types of art education programming that they plan to provide, and all of the instructors. It sounds like they have like this amazing group of people that will be leading the students through the activities, both from arts and humanities disciplines. So you can really see. Anne has her finger up.
Yeah, I apologize for interrupting. Sam just came in. There was a glitch in the Wi-Fi where he's doing the live stream and he has to restart it. So we need to pause for just a minute. Sam, give us a cue when we should restart. I'm so sorry, Jody, to stop you in the middle.
It's okay.
I actually, my computer froze and I wondered what was going on for a minute. So we'll see. Sam.
Right, we're back. Well, no. We're back live. It just looks like it's a different link now. But we're live now.
Okay, I think
So
that
we're okay to
go
proceed?
ahead. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jody. So if you would
That's
pick
okay.
up where you left off.
Okay. So people will have this new link. We don't have to worry about that. Okay. Okay. So, let's see. I was just talking about the instructors seem like they have a range of experiences, so they'll be able to provide this robust and varied programming for students. They have varied backgrounds. So yeah, I think the artistic quality of the program and the experience of the instructors seems really spot on. Anne and I talked about the deadline was the end of their project was a little bit past the deadline, but apparently that's okay since it's a summer camp program and it's just a few days after. Their evaluation plans seemed really comprehensive, and I really appreciated that they were going to make an effort to observe their teaching artists so that they could actually see. I've been on the teaching end enough times where I'm like, does anyone even really care what I'm doing here? As long as I show up. So that's nice for those people to feel like somebody's coming to watch them, give them some feedback, and also for the program to understand whether what they're hiring people to do is really happening, and also conducting exit interviews with those people so that they can hear how their experience was and plan for future programming. I thought all seemed really strong. And then starting with this happening within the public schools, but also partnering with other groups to make sure that students are aware of this program and coming and they're providing scholarships for like over 10% of the participants. So all of that community impact and engagement seemed really strong. So
Thank you, Jody. Cynthia, our secondary reviewer.
Let me go back to this. Yeah, I felt it was very strong as well. It's very impressive. It's been around for 38 years and has served so many students. And I love that they're incorporating the arts in other camps or in these camps, these 6 camps. I would like to know more about how they're incorporating the arts in others since they have so many, because I believe you can teach anything with the arts. And I felt like the hiring process, teaching artists and teachers, that was a solid process. I've really appreciated all that input that they provided. I did feel like their measurable goals were solid, but I didn't have enough information about their specific arts measurable goals. I also felt like they And maybe this is the plan to implement some more arts, theater, and music into their program. I did appreciate that they introduced sewing. I love functional art. So yeah, I really, I love this. I think it's great.
Thank you, Cynthia. Chris and Casey, do you have anything further to add?
I would just say I appreciated that they had several different types of evaluation and involving, you know, multiple different stakeholders. But I was having trouble seeing a direct connection between the evaluation and the project goals.
Okay. Thank you for that, Chris. I will let the panelists look at their scores and adjust if necessary, and then let me know when you have completed that. Thank you. So thank you. We will now move on to our third application, Circle Theater and the Wizard of Oz Jumping Jitterbugs Workshops.
So this project is for the Jumping Jitterbugs Workshop sponsored by the Circle Theater that will take place in February and March of 2025. These workshops will introduce students to two American traditional dances, the jitterbug and tap, while also exploring how folk dance is transformed and represented in choreography designed for the stage.
Thanks, Anne. So we'll begin with our primary reviewer, Chris.
Okay, so I thought this was a really interesting program, and I really appreciated the emphasis on serving students with special needs and involving them in this musical theater production. One question I had that I wasn't quite clear about is so it mentions that the workshops serve 500 students, and then they have the opportunity to participate in the production. And it wasn't clear to me how the process of going from the workshops to the production, and do they audition or do they just, you know, self-select who's going to participate, or do they all participate? And if so, how does that work with 500 students? Do they perform in all of the shows or just one? Those are, I have a theater background, so I'm trying to like see it on the stage. I will say the video of the performance from the previous year really helped to kind of see that to some degree. But again, connecting that with the workshops was a little challenging. I wrote in my comments that I think a video of one of the workshops would have been really helpful to help in understanding. They describe several different types of goals, including arts learning, SEL, and academic goals, and several different evaluation tools as well. One thing that I strongly appreciated was evidence of the organization applying previous feedback to make programmatic changes for the benefit of the participants. I thought that was great. They mention assessment regarding artistic skills. However, there wasn't a specific mention of evaluation regarding the SEL or academic skills. And I think the other thing I would have appreciated additional specific information regarding how some of these topics would be discussed in a way that's developmentally appropriate and responsive to the needs and interests of the students. You know, Wizard of Oz has had a lot of different interpretations over the years. So just more clarification on how they're situating this production and how they're addressing some of these ideas of representation and yeah, more clarity on that would have been helpful to me.
Thank you, Chris. We'll now hear from Jody.
Yeah, Chris covered a lot of things that I had also noticed. Let's see. One thing I think sort of starting with where Chris was ending was a big thing for me too, is there was this mention of Jewish students gaining specifically from the content, but I'm Jewish and I don't know how the jitterbug and the yeah, like it relates. So I wanted like more to understand that. I appreciate the desire to like connect those things, but I didn't feel like I walked away understanding the connection that was attempted there. But overall, I really liked the idea. I also liked working with the, focusing on students with disabilities. I shared Chris's like confusion, although I couldn't really articulate it. And you did a great job, Chris. So thank you about, maybe it's because you have a theater background and I have a visual art background, but I could not wrap my head around, like you, that all the students were going to go to the performance and then were they all going to be on stage. So thank you for clarifying that. I think that could have been explained a little bit more clearly. And then in terms of documentation, I also was like appreciative to see the video of a performance from last year, but I couldn't quite understand how the students with disabilities were getting to move. And I wonder whether seeing some of the workshop videos might have helped me to see like what they were trying to get the students to learn and experience a little bit better from different perspective. I think that's it for me.
Thank you, Jody. Any additional comments from Cynthia or Casey?
Yeah, I concur with what both Jody and Chris mentioned. I also wanted to make note that I wanted to know more, or I wanted, I guess, a different offering of, the applicant seemed to understand who was likely to come to their performances, what audiences they were serving, and which ones they were not. And there was an awareness there of, we've got this group, we are engaged with this group. We are less engaged with this group, but we really don't know how to get them there. And so I would have liked to have known a better plan of reaching those new audiences that they mentioned that they're not anticipating coming to the performances, and how they might try to get those people to come to their performances if they know that they're not coming. So I just want to add that maybe a shift in perspective of, an awareness is great, but what's that next step? How are you going to then engage those people in your community that are not being currently engaged?
Thank you, Casey. Well, if the panelists will now look at their scores and just if necessary, and then let me know when you're concluded. Thank you. We'll now move on to the Film Camp Art Festival, sponsored by Dig Site Productions.
The Dig Site project will provide local youth with hands-on experience in the film and arts industry through free camps and workshops, nurturing creativity and enhancing conventional film education. Local and international filmmakers' participation in this festival helps local aspiring young filmmakers on their educational paths.
Thank you, Anne. We'll begin with Cynthia.
Yes, well, with a little bit of this kind of a background, I worked for public media for many years. I really like this project. I appreciate the depth of the filmmaking process and the career focus that this provides. So it's going to be, and I believe 2 days, maybe two-day free camps for 30 to 50 youth. What I would really like to know, and I didn't see it in here, is how the youth are selected. And it's the goals are very rich. They want to go from 2 camps to 15, it looks like, per year. They are also planning to create a film studio in Vermont, and also encouraging volunteerism by the youth, which I think is great. It would be really cool to take some youth that were in previous camps to work with youth in these camps. They might do that, I don't know, but I think that would be a really cool way to expand the community engagement. I love that it addresses mental health. And the final result is that the films are submitted to international film festivals. So that's fantastic. Just as an aside, it's not really arts related, but it is media arts related, is it would be nice to have media literacy implemented into this camp, because, you know, it's so important. So I felt like their budget might have been a little high, but I don't know how much equipment. I know equipment's expensive, so I don't really know how much else or how much they need. I just felt like the budget was a little high. The instructors were expensive, but maybe that's just the going rate for professional filmmakers. So, and that's about all.
Thanks, Cynthia. We'll now hear from Casey on the application.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with what Cynthia was saying. That was one of the questions that I had was how are they recruiting the students to participate? And do the students get any kind of post-camp opportunities or engagement? And the only other thing I really want to add is I felt like this was one application where the work samples also really helped this application. I thought the work samples were really strong, and it brought a lot of context into the narratives having those work samples. So
Thank you, Casey. Chris or Jody, do you have additional comments?
I would just add one thing, and I agree with all the previous comments, and especially the video I thought was really helpful in understanding the narrative. One thing I noticed is that the evaluation section didn't have any mention of participant input in the evaluation process. Although I did really appreciate the using social media metrics and the acceptance rate into the film festival. I just wondered if there are other ways to evaluate the impact on the students rather than just the final product. And I know, you know, sometimes people get tired of surveys, but even like a video, you know, that they make of, you know, their impact, the impact on the students. So just wanted to add that.
Thank you, Chris. All right, panelists, if you'd look at your scores, adjust if necessary, and let me know when you're done. Okay. Moving on, we are now ready for the Echo Collective sponsorship of Threads of Heritage, Weaving Stories Across Generations.
Hey, Echo Collective's weaving program provides refugee and immigrant women, which they refer to as New American women, the opportunity to learn the art of textile weaving while building a supportive community. Since its inception in 2021, the weaving program has served 18 New American women and 16 of their children, and it complements the other textile programs offered by Echo Collective. They anticipate serving another 4 New American women and their children.
Thank you, Anne. So we will first hear from Jody.
So I really, really liked this application. I'm sorry, I'm not supposed to be personal. I thought this was really strong, really responding to a need in the community, and people who are underrepresented and very often, not considered in these types of applications. So serving this high need population, empowering women, giving them an opportunity to practice their English language skills, and building relationships both within their families. I liked that the women were engaged and the children were also invited to participate at least part of the time. Maybe it could have been a little bit more clear, like when is it important for it just to be the women, when, what parts of the program are the children invited, and also form relationships with other newly arrived women was all really strong and very, clearly and succinctly described here. I guess one question I had was whether or not any of the home cultures in fiber and textiles were part of this. I think that was a little bit of a question about recruitment process and how people were how are people engaged to become participants? I don't remember if it was in one of the support materials that came with the application or when I went to the website, but I did see that one participant had owned a yarn shop in Ukraine and then so was bringing that experience into this. But I was curious to know if, other people participating had other things that they, past experiences with fiber textiles weaving that they were bringing in. And if there was an opportunity for them to share, what is weaving in their home culture. I'm not really that familiar with Soul Collage, but it does look like it's a really great program that they're bringing in and linking as a way of creating a framework for sharing personal stories and reflection about experiences. So that seems really applicable to this program as well, and a way to boost the weaving. Their fundraising history is impressive, demonstrating wide support for the program. And they have some clear evaluation measures for social, emotional, and artistic activities and impact. A question I had about evaluation was related to staying connected with the participants over time. I know this is a relatively new program, but curious whether, are they going to be are they setting some long-term goals for participants, and then how are they tracking that impact? And I think the organization also has like an entrepreneurial track to help women use hand building skills, whatever, art making skills for financial gain. And I'm curious about how do they move people from this program into that track. And then in terms of outreach and engagement, again, it just seems like they're really responding to a need in the community. And I'm curious about I was a little bit curious to know more about what kind of partnerships they're building with refugee resettlement agencies, both for this program and also potentially to build up what they're doing to provide other programs. And that's it. It's definitely one of these small number of participants, but big potential impact.
Thanks, Jody. We'll now hear from Casey.
Yeah, totally agree. I really I thought the fact that they were engaging women and their children together was really what made this powerful, in the sense that these families are in new places, and it might be really off-putting to kind of provide something for just the children or just the mothers who don't want to be separated. And so I love that that is a huge part of their program, is that it is for mothers and their children. I also really liked their evaluation plan. I thought the fact that they are really kind of honing in on the well-being and mental health aspect of the program was really strong. And one thing I did want to know, mostly for my own curiosity, but something that I think could have made the application even stronger, was a little bit more detail about how they address any language barriers, or making sure that the program is welcoming to a variety of women from different backgrounds. They talk about the different kind of breakdown of who they're seeing coming into their communities from different countries and areas, and it seems pretty kind of a wide swath of diverse population. So how are they engaging? How are they welcoming to make sure that everyone that comes through is engaged in kind of the most impactful way? But yeah, really super strong application.
Thank you, Casey. Are there any additional comments by Cynthia or Chris? Cynthia?
I just wanted to say I felt like that budget was very frugal, and I really appreciated this the whole project idea.
Okay, if look at your scores and let me know when they're finalized. All right, we will move on now to the Here Nebraska's the beat making and fashion education for underserved youth.
Okay, this project is seeking support for the cost of staffing that relates to their fashion and beat making clubs and camps that will take place between January and June of 2025. They anticipate a total of up to 500 people in Lincoln and Omaha to be served through these clubs and camps during this period. The experience will culminate in a live DJ performance and photo shoot of custom created fashion pieces.
Thank you, Anne. We will begin with Chris.
So one thing I really appreciated about this application and this project was the focus on student interest. And, I think that's really important as far as getting the students' motivation and engagement. I really appreciated that there was a focus on small class sizes, while also offering this at multiple locations and serving a large number of students. So rather than trying to serve a large number of students at one time, they're doing it in smaller groups. There was mention of connections to Nebraska Arts Learning Standards, as well as other goals as well. I have a note that more explanation of the artist's qualifications would be helpful. as well as more detail in the presented lesson plan. Program evaluation is there's input from a variety of stakeholders, including the students. And I thought more information regarding the evaluation of specific arts learning outcomes would be helpful. I also noted that it seems that a quite large majority of the budget is going towards administrative salaries, and it wasn't clear to me. I wasn't sure if those individuals are also teaching the program as well, or just serving in an administrative capacity. I noted that this is free programming, and they travel to different locations, so that reduces a lot of barriers to access, both of those things. And also noted several community outreach events that they have listed as well.
Thanks, Chris. Our secondary reviewer, Jody.
Sorry about that. Yeah, so I think I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of like samples of work from the past. And that was something that I was wanting a little bit more of. The return on the, funding is really strong in terms of the number of, I think they said 110 music and 25 visual art sessions. But it seemed like it just seemed like a lot to do in a for such a small budget. I think that maybe that was part of the questions like that Chris had brought up about the budget in terms of administrative and teaching fees. I'm of course not familiar with like the teaching artist compensation in Nebraska, but I think that just seemed like that was something that stood out to me. Um, let's see. But I mean, those somewhat like critical comments they started out with, the first thing I had in my notes was that this program sounds awesome and I want to do it. So I think it does seem like a really great program with the goals and objectives links to social and emotional development, as well as fine arts learning standards. So I thought there was strong participation from the arts community, with well-rounded mentors for these students. I think that's about all I have for now.
Thank you. Any additional comments from Cynthia or Casey? Okay. Please look at your scores and let me know when they're finalized. Okay, we will proceed. I've lost my window with the next application, so I'm trying to get it back up. Anne, if you would just proceed.
Oh, sure. Yeah, this is the Malone Center grant. And the Malone Centers describes their initiative as, I'll read it here. Our art initiative combines with Merge EDU learning, and it offers children a way to express their emotions and thoughts non-verbally, enhancing self-awareness, expression, and empathy. Access to arts programs in underserved communities is often hindered by challenges such as financial constraints, lack of resources, and limited institutional support.
Thank you very much. So we will begin with our primary reviewer, Cynthia.
You're muted, Cynthia.
Sorry about that. I just jumped in. So I really appreciate this. I am familiar with Merge EDU and the augmented reality, and I understand that this would probably involve quite a bit of instruction on the part of the teacher, and also the cost of the cubes and the tablets that they're going to have to work with. I would like to know more about how they plan to implement the arts. The merge cube can simulate any environment. You can create other worlds, so that's great. I just would like to see how other disciplines could be addressed with this. I felt like the evaluation was a bit generic, still unclear about some of the logistics. And I felt like the budget was a bit lean on some information. I assume that this is an ongoing project, so once all of the materials and supplies are in place and the instructor has been trained, that this will be a continuing education for the community. And I really like the outreach of the project and how it can work with youth in the community. I didn't feel like there was enough information about how to address disabilities with this technology. Yeah, so that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you very much. We will now proceed to Casey.
Yeah, I wanted a lot more from this application. I felt there was a lot of information that was missing. Starting with, I wanted to know more about the artist, the lead teacher that this application would be providing the funds for. You know, what the qualifications of that artist was. I felt like the support materials did not help the application very much. Just kind of led me to more questions. I also felt like there was a lot of jargon that was used, but not a lot of content in the narratives. Felt like there was a lot of kind of using lingo that we like to hear, but not a lot of meat to bite into, to give me a really good sense of the project as a whole. I also was really curious as to, Cynthia mentioned the equipment, and if it's already at the community center. If not, do they have to buy this? So yeah, there was a lot that I wanted more of all around in the budget. I wanted to know more. In almost every section, I just wanted more information. As many details, it's always better to give way more details than less, in my opinion.
Thank you, Casey. Anything else from Jody or Chris?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just add to the comments about wanting more information. I think something very specific I wanted more information on was unlike Cynthia, I'm happy to know that you understand this, because to me, it's like I don't really understand the technology personally, but I understand art and creative expression and helping kids to digest and express emotions. And I did not see that linked. Like how are you going to connect providing an opportunity for students to explore how they're feeling or experiencing things through this technology? So I kept waiting for that to come so it would like click for me, and it just didn't. And then I also felt like the evaluation plans could have been fleshed out much more specifically in terms of how success would be measured.
Thank you, Jody. Chris, any addition?
No, I concur with all the comments so far.
Okay. Well, it looks like we're about due for a little break, about a 5-minute break. Is that correct, Dan?
You're right. I lost track of time. So yeah,
Okay.
I think we could, and we're going right through these grants at a good clip. So
Do you want to convene at 9:10 or I have
Yeah.
about 9:02 on my computer, so would
let's
that be
say
okay? Okay.
10 past the
Remember
hour.
to turn off your audio and video, please, and we will convene at 9:10. Thanks.
I have a question since most of us are back. Casey mentioned that when she tried to make a score change, she got a service unavailable pop-up. Cynthia, you too, and I had that happen too. I assumed it was just me and our Wi-Fi in our office. So Jennifer, do you have recommendations for people? Should they keep trying?
Just keep trying. What happens is everybody's trying to get in at the same time, so it locks for a minute, but if it should refresh.
I just closed out the window, went back to the link and logged in again, and that helped me.
Yeah, you can do that too if that works for you.
So Jennifer, should people who wanted to make adjustments but couldn't go ahead and, I mean, I know we say do it at the end of each discussion, but given the issue, they can go ahead and try to now if they need to.
Yeah, if you have changes that you need to make that didn't take, we can take a couple minutes, but I mean, they've been changing on a pretty regular basis, so I think we're okay.
Is there anyone that needs a few moments to do that of the panelists? Everything's changed for you? Okay.
Okay.
Are we good?
Okay,
Yeah.
we will proceed. Thanks, Jennifer. Okay, let me get back to where we need to be. All right, we are now ready to review the application of the Poetry and Music Project from Opera Omaha. Anne, would you give us a synopsis, please?
You bet. Okay, Opera Omaha's Poetry and Music Project will be for activities taking place January through May of 2025. Opera Omaha anticipates receiving poetry submissions from more than 100 students across the state following 18 writing workshops with approximately 400 students. They anticipate that 300 or more family and community members will attend the final concert in May of 2025, which highlights the students whose poems were selected or were set to music by professional composers.
Thanks. All right, we'll first hear from Cynthia.
I was very impressed with this project, pulling together poetry with opera. I mean, it really transcends. I felt like the supplemental materials were excellent. That gave me such a great view of the final product. Also, there's a book that's published of all of the students' poetry, and that's in the Omaha Library permanent collection. So the video is also posted on the Opera Omaha YouTube channel of the actual performance. They do a very thorough survey evaluation, and it seemed to reach all the audiences. I felt like the artists were top notch from their bios, and the administrators were impressive as well. I like that it addresses social emotional content, and they listed all the standards. As a this kind of reminds me of Poetry Out Loud a little bit, but it gives a little twist. I just felt like it was great overall.
Thanks, Cynthia. Now we'll hear from Chris.
Yeah, I agree, Cynthia. As soon as I started reading it, I was thinking, how does this relate to Poetry Out Loud? But I really I appreciated this project a lot, especially the focus on making poetry relevant for students, which sometimes it doesn't always seem, and on the focus on students creating their own works. And the project book and the videos to me really demonstrated work consistent with the narrative and at a high level. Let me see. they listed national standards. I think it would have been more helpful to explain how they connect with the goals, as opposed to listing. And I just had a question. It mentioned that sometimes the works are later performed. Just making sure students are credited, and you know, if it's published, compensated as well later on. I would have liked to have seen, they had a survey for teachers. I would have maybe liked to have seen a survey for students, or some way to get that feedback as well. I noticed that the largest program expense is the recording and editing of the concert videos. And just wondering if that's the best use of this funding. Also noted that the compensation for the MC seemed a little bit low at first glance. And there were some strong partnerships mentioned. Student demographics, I don't think were specifically stated. And then it also wasn't clear the amount of funding of this project that would potentially be going toward projects in Iowa, or students from Iowa. So just wanted to note that as well.
Thank you, Chris. Are there any additional comments from Jody or Casey? Okay, there being none, if you guys would please finalize your scores and then let me know when you've done that. Okay. We will move on to the Renaissance Performing Arts Company.
Okay, this proposal is to help cover costs associated with community performances and travel costs for a pre-professional musical theater training company. It applies to approximately 15 children who will represent Nebraska at an international musical theater festival during February of 2025, as well as other community events in the greater Omaha area in the spring of 2025.
Thank you, Anne. We will begin with Casey.
Okay. I thought this was a solid application. I felt like the narratives were clear and concise, easy to read, easy to understand what they were asking. I think, let me go back and make sure that this is the one I'm remembering correctly. Sorry, I had a comment about. I thought that the evaluations, the plan for evaluation was pretty well thought out and multifaceted, which I appreciated. And that it was not all going to take place just at the end of the project, but throughout the project, which I can appreciate. And the awareness that, from that feedback that they're going to get in mid-program, they allow themselves to adjust to meet the needs of their students. I thought that their outreach and the awareness of the barriers that are present in their community was really good and thoughtful. I thought that their request for the actual funding amount was feasible and made sense. Yeah, I thought this was a solid application. I wasn't left with a lot of questions or wanting a lot more information. You know, they were very honest about not having really any external partnerships, but I don't feel like that was a necessary thing to have for this particular project. Yeah, I thought it was solid.
Thanks, Casey. Now we'll hear from Cynthia.
I agree with Casey. I feel like it's solid. At first I had a little bit of reservation about the tuition cost, but then I really do understand why they need that. I felt like the budget was clear and fair and reasonable, what they're asking for. And they were straightforward. There was really no question about what they wanted. So I'd have adjusted my score a little bit, but this is a good, solid application.
Thank you. Any additions from Jody or Chris?
I'll just add, there was mention of musical theater as being culturally responsive. And I definitely think that it can be. I think I would have appreciated, though, more information on how that's the case in this context, maybe about, you know, how the repertoire or the productions are selected and why.
Anything else? Okay, please adjust your scores if needed. Let me know when that's completed, please. Okay, we are now ready for Sing Omaha and their Sing Omaha Choral Invitational.
Yes, Sing Omaha's Choral Invitational will bring in guest composer conductor Michael John Trotta. This residency, culminating in a concert on May 1st, will bring together Sing Omaha's 2 adult choirs, Sing Omaha Girls Choir, Creighton University choirs, and local high school choirs, and will be accompanied by a professional orchestra. A choral reading clinic with Mr. Trotta will also be offered free of charge for area teachers on April 29th.
Thanks, Anne. We will start with Chris.
Just pulling it up here real quick. Okay, so I thought that the application was very clear for the most part in terms of what this project is. In particular, I appreciated them bringing in a really high level conductor and composer, and I do think it's great to be able to perform with different types of instruments that you might not normally perform with. I also appreciated the reading session as well, and the involvement of multiple different choirs. There were college choirs, community choirs, and high school choirs as well. So I think that's great. I noted that in terms of planning and evaluation, the goals for the project seem mostly based around the performance of like the concert, i.e. attendance, ticket sales. I also noted that there wasn't mention of standards necessarily for participating high schools or tie-ins to existing curriculum. And again, it sometimes felt as if maybe the focus was on the concert as opposed to maybe the educational process. Although I do think performance as education also has its own merits as well. There wasn't any specific mention of demographics or underserved populations specifically benefiting from the funding, although there is evidence of a range of community engagement and different partnerships.
Thank you, Chris. And now Casey.
Yeah, I agree. I actually made a comment that it felt a little bit like the clinics and workshops were an afterthought, rather than kind of the driving force of the project proposal. Definitely was more about the performance. And the artist that they're bringing in is incredible, and very impressive. And I think it would be a stellar opportunity for the participants to get to work with this person. But I wanted more information about the specifics of the workshops, and I wanted there to be more connections, curriculum connections, that kind of thing. And also I felt like it was a missed opportunity for them to collect some really interesting data from their workshops. And I felt a little bit like they were probably relying a little too much on word of mouth to get the word out about the performance and the workshops. That they kind of tapped their toes into the waters of engaging a wider audience, but we're really kind of just relying on their same pool of participants, kind of spreading the word for them. So, and I agree. I also think that there is a certain element of educational value to performance, but I think that in this case, the impact could have been a lot stronger in those more kind of one-on-one or one-on small group opportunities. And I felt like the application could have focused more on those opportunities than the performance.
Thank you, Casey. Any additional comments from Cynthia or Jody?
I'll just say I'm enjoying being on this panel because it's nice to, see what other people notice, and it really helps us to become better readers and evaluators. So I'm thankful to Casey and Chris, and, I really appreciated listening to you and then going back into the application. You really helped me to see how the applicant could have been more specific about the learning goals in the workshops, and leading up to the performance, and also about how they describe evaluating the growth of the ensemble, and like being more specific and like about what would demonstrate growth of the ensemble. And then the only other thing I would say is that I do want to just note that it is, I recognize the value of giving students an opportunity to work with a living composer, and that I think that is one really great strength of this application, and something that, I think arts councils fund sometimes, but it's a great way for music educators, I think, to tap into these resources and provide a new experience for their students.
Thank you, Jody. If the panelists will please finalize their scores and let me know when completed. All right, we will proceed to our next application, the Theater Arts for Kids and their outreach program.
Okay. This proposal is to pay teaching artists for the post-pandemic return of their Rising Stars program for ages 3 to 6 years old. It will also help fund the launch of their new ukulele jam, which is free to all participants and a magical way of teaching musicianship, music theory, and sight reading, which transfers to their musical theater endeavors. This grant will also fund the opportunity for students at Leffler Middle School to take part in an after-school musical theater program.
Okay, we will begin with Chris.
Okay, 2 in a row. Um, so one thing I really appreciated about this application was the variety in programming that was offered, and having different types of classes, I think is a strength of this application. The applicant listed process standards for 2 of the 3 classes and noted that there was a character limit constraint. I think while it's helpful to have standards, it's not always necessarily helpful from the standpoint of a reader to have them listed all per se. And I think more helpful is to have maybe the specific outcomes as well, or the connections to the standards with the students through the project, rather than listing all the standards. The resident teaching artists listed on the website appear to be credentialed. I did also just want to note, in terms of curriculum, the song Cotton Eye Joe just seems as if could be potentially problematic. It's another one of those songs where there's a lot of different sort of historical and cultural, different opinions about that song, and by different groups of people, and just wanting to make sure that that's done in a way that if this song is used, that I don't know, avoids any potential issues. For instance, someone from the South, like, for instance, making sure that it's not sort of a caricature of Southern culture or rural American culture, those sorts of things. The video contained evidence of the various artistic learning mentioned throughout the narrative. In the planning and evaluation section, I noted that, again, I think standards are different than goals, and the goals should be more of what exactly you want the participants to learn. The budget showed a balance of different spending that seemed appropriate to the scope of the project. And I appreciated that it's offered for free at various school and community locations. And there was indication of working with school staff to support and enhance curriculum. And there was also a focus on students with disabilities or various challenges such as living in foster care. There was a significant amount in the budget listed under marketing. However, there wasn't any mention of marketing in the narrative, which I think would have been helpful.
Thank you, Chris. And now we'll hear from Jody.
Too many screens, sorry. Clicking here, clicking there. Yeah, I think as with a few of the applications, there was the sort of like just sticking learning standards in and not connecting them to the project goals. And so I think that's just a good lesson for others to take away. Yeah, my comments for the most part mirrored Chris's. I guess I just had thoughts around giving us a little bit more information about the feedback they say they're requesting, and potentially providing testimonials from some of the special interest constituents they talk about wanting to work with now and in the future. But I think that's all I have to add.
Thank you, Jody. Anything additionally from Cynthia or Casey? Okay. All right, please finalize the scores. All right, we will continue on to the University of Nebraska Kearney's Loper Launch Camps 2025.
Okay, I'll read their synopsis because it's worded a little differently than some of the others. The Nebraska Arts Council grant will help us fund a reduction in wages and supplies to lower the overall cost of camp and allow Loper Launch Enrichment Camp to offer high-quality, engaging, art-based curriculum to children of lower socioeconomic status during June. Over the past 5 years, we averaged an attendance of over 380 students per year. With nearly 900 seats in the summer camp, we anticipate at least 400 students from Kearney and the surrounding communities to participate in 2025.
Thank you. Our first reviewer is Jody.
Okay, so another summer camp program, really valuable programming for communities, giving kids something to do in the summertime. It's nice that it's happening on a college campus, exposing them to the resources that are available there, making use of those, as well as getting kids familiar with that environment if it might be part of their future. The curriculum seems like it's well developed in consultation with both people in the arts community and PK through 12 and university levels. And then I guess a question I had about that was that there wasn't like a lot of detail about the visual art programming. They talk about hands-on artistic activities, but don't get into a lot of specifics, and mentioned using the art museum, but not entirely clear on what would be happening there. The theater program, on the other hand, sounds really well developed, and that was much more clear to me. So another question I had was just whether there was, I think there was some references in part of it to wanting to integrate the arts into all of the programming, or just focusing on those through this grant on improving those that are focused on art. In the evaluation, the plans seem solid. However, they mentioned increasing art in response to a survey, but or they mentioned surveying, but then I wasn't sure if they were increasing their art options in response to that. And then I think they maybe got to it later. If I'm looking at my notes, working through my notes, maybe they got to it later. So maybe this was just a case of like organizing the content differently to make it easy for us to read it. I think the plans for measuring art specifically were not that strong. Part of the program evaluation or project evaluation part really got into like how NAC funds were used in the past, and just like didn't really speak to this in a way that I understood in terms of the impact on this specific programming. And also, again, just clarifying, I think this is that fundamental issue with this one of like naming what the arts objectives would be a little bit more clearly, so that then those can be linked to learning objectives in the arts. In terms of outreach and engagement, I really like this idea of subsidizing summer camp programs. I think this was the one that said, that they're recruiting in Title I schools, which sounds like a really good, strong idea. I wonder, whether there's something to think about beyond like first announcing it and then like how is their follow-up happening maybe, because I see that registration, that they say 75% of their people are registering for 2 or more classes. I can't remember now whether they say what, I mean, if that's going to lower income students, that's great. It means these kids are getting like lots of programming in the summer. If it's like the people who can pay are getting in there early and grabbing all the spots for their kids, then that would be something I would question. Like, is there a way to do that differently if serving that population is a primary goal? I had a note in here about, is there a possibility of providing busing to increase participation from communities, to increase access potentially? And other than that, it seemed like there was a lot of active and promising partnerships and good participation numbers overall.
Thank you, Jody. Chris, we'll now hear from you.
Yeah, thanks, Jody. You covered a lot of what I had in the notes. I'll just add a couple things. I appreciated that they had a very robust administrative team that was made up of several different professionals and committees. And although I did note that it looks like there was only one arts professor listed in the Arts and Humanities Committee. So I, as an artist and as someone, evaluating in this context, maybe would have appreciated more representation from arts professionals. Also, I noted there was a comment that an additional goal that may not be measurable by numbers is the goal to engage students and expand their mind through art. And I agree that, those things definitely are not fully measurable by numbers, but there are several different kinds of measures that can be used regarding things like student engagement. So I would encourage, to think about how the ways in which those can be evaluated appropriately in context. And then relatedly, it's stated that the primary goal of the program is essentially to combat summer learning loss, which I think is a really great goal, and especially for working primarily with students from Title I schools. However, there didn't appear to be any evaluations that really directly measured this outcome, which may be helpful.
Thanks, Chris. Any additional comments on the application from Cynthia or Casey? Okay. Casey, were you able to log back in? Okay, you're on then. Okay. If you guys could please finalize those scores. And then we will be ready for our final application this morning, the West Side Community Schools Arts for Me project.
Okay. Arts for Me is a collaboration between West Side Community Schools, Millard Public Schools, they abbreviated here, but maybe they spelled it out somewhere in the application, Kaneko Organization, and local artists, including Thurman Statham, which is designed to provide students with disabilities the opportunity to engage in a meaningful creative arts experience that fosters creativity, form, genre, and expression. As an adapted arts course, students are provided individualized instruction and support to guide their creative journeys.
Okay, thank you. We will begin with Casey.
Okay. I overall thought this was a great idea and a great program. I felt like they had solid narratives, pretty easily to understand what they're going for, a wide reach, reaching into several public school systems, which I thought was really great. Really the biggest comment that I had is, and we see this a lot of, visual arts leaning into Western canon artists, such as Van Gogh, which are always favorites, but it would be also lovely to see more local Nebraska artists highlighted and studied, as well as American artists, just to kind of bring it all home to the students. But yeah, I thought it was great. I liked that they are working with several school districts, and that they are specifically wanting to work with students that need some extra support, and kind of this really personal engagement, I think, is great. And yeah, I really liked it.
Thanks, Casey. And now Cynthia.
I agree with Casey. I did appreciate that they're working with very small groups to target students' individual needs, and they're bringing in artists to give individualized instructions. And they're personalizing the arts learning for the students. I also took pause with the Van Gogh because I thought, well, something that's more relatable would be a local artist. So anyway, yeah, I agreed with that completely. Yeah, and I thought it was really great. They do implement the standards across the curriculum. Yeah, I don't have anything else.
Thanks, Cynthia. Anything from Jody or Chris?
The only thing I had that I don't think was talked about before was in reviewing the TAs, the teaching artist bios, like I didn't necessarily see a lot of experience working with students with special needs. And I just wondered, about what kind of on-the-job training or, guidance they might get around that.
Thank you, Jody.
I just wanted to note too that I think one of the links was a private group, so we weren't able to access that information.
Okay. Okay, panelists, if you would please finalize this application. So now that all of the applications have been discussed and scored, I think we'll go ahead and take a break. And during this time, the Nebraska Arts Council staff will tally the scores and prepare the information for final discussion. And then when the panelists reconvene, we will review the procedures and make final determinations. This final portion of the meeting will be closed to the public. And at this time, we will say goodbye to the applicants and the members of the public who have joined in. Thank you for doing so. And the grant applicants will be notified by mid-December about the funding decision for your project. So thank you for joining us, and we will reconvene the panelists at the top of the hour. Thank you.